Today I'm going to be working on the centre stand and the foot brake, and I've been working from the good old plans that I had made, which you would think it's relatively simple. The footrest consists really of a bar that goes all the way through both sides, and the footrest themselves, the rubber footrests themselves, screw onto it, and everything else swivels on that. Now, one of the problems that I had before was when you take the rubber footrest, and this is one here, and when you're twisting it in, and this nut is right up there on the end, and as you rotate that footrest and that nut turns, it goes down the thread all the way. But what happens is that if you turn it too far, then the threaded bar starts to protrude out through the edge of the rubber, splitting it. I don't know if the camera can see, it splits it because you've turned it too far. And I'm thinking, I wonder how many people have had a problem with that. So what I did is I bought some new rubbers, completely empty, just ready to be refitted. And I thought to myself, I wonder. So I cut a footrest. I cut one in half to see what's inside. And what's inside is an indentation with two little bits of moulding in there. And when you look inside, what you get is you get the nut and you get two spacer bars. So as you screw in, the spacer bars I suppose would provide support to the actual footrest. The bar would go all the way through into that nut, and that's it. But what happens is, as you, like I said before, as you tighten up the footrest, the bar goes through. And I'm thinking, well, that can't be right, can it? Because what do? Just twist that up until, oh, it's just about right, and then leave it alone. It's the footrest, it's where your feet go. So I'm thinking, right, there's got to be another solution to this. So what would happen if that's the nut there. Oh, you can't see it, so I'll bring it up so you can see. Can you see both? So that nut there is that nut. There's the spacer. Two bits and pieces. The spring washers there. I suppose if you want to be 100% accurate, you could do that way, like that. And then that protrudes out onto that. But then it still doesn't stop. If you turn too hard, what happens is it still protrudes out through the rubbers. I'll show you what I mean over here. So if you're looking at the diagram in relation to it, there on the diagram is the spacer bar. There's the washer, and then there is the footrest. I don't know if it can zoom in a little bit. See if we can zoom it in just a little bit more. And then the nut is on the end. And I'm thinking to myself, crikey, you can see that as you would tighten this up by twisting it round with the nut encased in the rubber, what would happen is everything would move along, move along, move along, move along, move along, move along, move along. And then what would happen is, if you tightened it up too hard, this screw thread would then start to protrude through the rubber. and that's if you didn't get the distances right. So, and you could easily ruin a rubber by doing it. So I'm thinking, right, well, there seems to be a fair bit of gap there for the nut to go through. So if I just now remove the rubber and I take a new nut and tighten the nut on, so it looks like that, the same thing is going to happen, you know, in relation. There's all that space there in which to nip it up, and I'm thinking, this can't possibly be right. It doesn't give you any leeway at all to do anything. So I'm thinking, right, hang on then, what else could we do? So what I did do is I recut the threads on this bar all the way down, because they only came to about there before, and then I should have taken a picture of that. So let's get the nut on. Let's whiz this down. I'll just stop it here because it's a bit boring. Ouch. So I've taken that nut down, and as you can see now, the stand, because it's on that spacer bar, stands free, brake bar free, but it's a lot more solid. I haven't nipped it up fully, it's just to show you what I mean, because I'm going to do all the bits and pieces in a bit later on. But if I tightened it up, then that would be nice and solid and not able to move. So then if you look at the inside spacers, 1, 2, there's a bit more, the nut protrudes over. So if one puts the nut on, feel how much more solid that is, then no matter how much I tighten this up and that rubber, it's going to hold there. It's not going to go at all. And what I forgot to do is put the spring washer on to make sure the nut doesn't come undone. So for demonstration purposes, there you go. So now when you tighten that up, let's say for instance that's as tight as I can twiddle it, the threaded bar does not protrude through the edge of the rubber, and the footrest is solid. The stand still moves, the brake pedal still moves. Oh, you can't see that off camera. Let's just move it around a bit. So the stand still moves, the brake pedal still moves up and down, but the footrest is a lot more solid, albeit it's not all nipped up. And the rubber can't get broken. So I'm thinking, right, well, it seems to be a sensible thing to do. You know, I wonder why BSA didn't do it. Probably either nobody thought of it, or B, they would have had to cut a thread on there and stick an extra nut on. And who knows? Who knows what they've done? But like I said right at the very start of this, there's some bits and pieces that I'm going to be doing that are non-standard, and there's other bits. So I just thought I'd show you it. And like I say, really, and I wish I'd have filmed it, all I did is extend the thread from there just down there, and I've done the same on the other side, so that the spacer bar fits home, and when you crank it on, crank the nut up, put the nut on, and you're tightening it up so it's nice and tight. The threaded piece of the footrest bar will not protrude into the rubber, So no matter how hard you turn that, you're not going to endanger your rubber. That's unless you do any scraping this on the roadway when you're doing some fast cornering. But we all know the only way that's going to hit the floor is when we fall off. Bantams, standard Bantams don't do it, do they? Anyway, so my next problem is how do I get these on there inside the real one that's sealed up. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to boil some water and I'm going to make this soft and flexible, and then I'm going to bang it on so it goes on like that. When I do it and push it all the way home, nice and steady, to do that. Or at least that's the theory. We'll see how I get on in a minute. Right, thank you. Okay, so I was talking earlier about my invention, and as you can see, that what we were talking about is the end nut, then the spring washer, and then the 2 spacer bars like that, and that stops it from going forward. But all I did was extend the threads just down a bit on each side all the way down, so that that's the central core. Don't know if the camera can pick it up, but you can see that I just brought the threads down and down that way and did it. And it's the only thread cutter I had was a 1/2 inch British Standard Whitworth, so that's what I used, and I had 4 new nuts and I've just put it on. And how it goes together is spacer bar goes on first in relation to it, on there, and then it passes through and it passes through there. Spacer bar on this side goes through the bracket, through the centre stand, push a bit further. The brake pedal goes over the spacer bar until it all presses home, like that. And then the nut goes on the other side, just like we did on the other one. And brings it all the way home. I'll just stop the film here because this is definitely a bit boring. In case you're wondering what happens then if you turn the nut all the way too tight, won't it grab that? Well, in actual fact you can see that the spacer bar just sticks out in what, about 1 or 2 mil. So when you tighten everything up and it grips it nicely, and I'm just going to nip it for now. Brake pedal's moving and it's just nipped up on that spacer bar. I don't want the bike to fall on me. As you can see, look at that. So that's it. That moves like that and that moves like that. So the next thing is to see if we can get the spacer bars onto the electric. Let's turn it off. We're going to try and bash the rubber. The rubber's in the hot water soaking in the jam jar. So we've got to make sure that we get the spacer bars in, the thread, the spring washer, and then the nut on the end to do it. And I'm just going to nip it up just so it doesn't move when we do it. So I've got myself a dead weight hammer, a hot air gun just in case it gets stuck so that I can keep the rubber hot and malleable as it moves, and I can't pick the rubber up because I can't pick the jam jar up. It's got hot water on it, so I don't know if this is going to work, but I can only try. Let's have a go. Hey, hey, how about that? Look at that. Oh, hey, look at that. Perfect. So, we'll go and do the other side. I'm really impressed. So we're on the other side, and this is the rubber in the jam jar, and the jam jar is full of boiling water. And I've already put the spacer bar on and the spring washer. Spacer bar 1, 2, spring washer, and then the nut. So it's on like that. Get the dead weight hammer and the rubber, and let's see how we go. There you go. Oh, let's move that out of the way. Look at that. Absolutely brilliant. Look at that. Well, I would never believe that. But there you go. That is now the footrest on. All I've got to do is work out the spring on that side. And luckily, we know we can take the footrest on and off because they undo nicely. Look at that. I'm really impressed. There we go. Thank you. So now we're going to be fitting the brake pedal and the return spring. And the return spring is quite awkward looking really in that way. But what happens is the return spring goes over and then it catches, I don't know if the camera can see it, it catches there, leaving a little bracket piece. And that bracket piece eventually has to fit on there, and the whole lot has to go on there. Sort of like that. Then the bracket piece will come on and do it. Now, some of you may have noticed that since I was doing the last bit, I've had to raise the bike up on some blocks of wood to enable me to get in and get this sorted and along that way. So I'm just going to pause the camera just while I tighten everything up again, because I just wanted to show you how the spring went on the brake pedal itself. So I'm just going to pause the camera while again I just do the nut up and do it that way. Ooh. So despite the best intentions, when I started to fit the spring onto the brake pedal and had a look, when I was nipping things up tightly, when I thought there was just a gap about 1mm on, it was because the spindle wasn't square, and that caused a problem. So what I now need to do, when I tighten the nut up, it gripped the pedal and the pedal was not moving very well. It was free, but it really should be quite slack. So what I'm going to have to do is make a spacer bar to fit inside there, but also be able to pass the middle of the spindle down through the middle. And as I don't have a lathe or anything, what I've got is I've got a bench grinder, so I'm going to have a go at just grinding the edges off the this little washer, and that should give me the distances that I need to be able to nip up without causing any issues in on that. So I'm going to have a go and see how it works. You never know. Bit of a blow really, that. But I suppose if there was a BSA would have done it, they would have done it easier. Than they'd have had somebody make it up. That's probably why they didn't do it. But I'm going to persevere. I'm going to see how it goes. Because we're only talking maybe a millimetre or so. And hopefully that'll be able to do it. So I've got my trusty bench grinder here. Got my pliers. I know there's probably millions of things that you shouldn't do. And I'm going to recycle my water. Cool it all down. And I'm going to have a go. So yep, almost there. So I've finished grinding. One of the things there's a problem is, as usual, because it's an old part and it's been up and down thousands of times, it's actually oval rather than round. So when I've made the spacer, I've had to make the spacer, just stick it with my finger, just slightly smaller to allow for the ovalness of it. So all being well, I'll be able to fit it all onto the spindle quite well. So put the brake spring on, and again remember that the little bit that's going to fasten onto the edge, onto the bracket, has got to go that way around. So I'm going to swap the camera over so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so there's a bracket that goes on the top like so, and then that goes underneath, and then there's a spring, a spring that goes from the bottom there onto the stand to keep the stand, I'm blocking the view out with my fingers, to keep the stand away. And the bracket is held in place by a very little, like a cotter pin. And you know, these are 25 quid on eBay, blimey. But this is the original one, and they're held in place by 2 split pins. Now it's false economy, isn't it, to not use or not put on new split pins. So I'm just going to open them up so they don't fall off, but I'm not going to do everything until I've got it all in situation, all bolted up and in the right place. So that goes on through, snipping it up, because I forgot to take that off. It's got to go like that. Let's get that. Not in square. for some reason the nut. See, good reason I didn't use split pin screw. I'm going to take this off. That nut's not square. That bolt isn't square. I don't want to cross thread anything. That's better. So I've still got this blinking spring to get right round there, and I'm not too sure on how to do it easy. There must be an easy way, but when you look on YouTube, nobody's actually shown you doing this, so there must be a really easy way of doing it. I don't know which to do first. The spring on there. Ouch. So that looked about right, but it doesn't feel right. Let's just try that. Oh, hold it there. Hey, look, it's working. Well, I never would have believed that. So, centre stand in, put it through. I'll tell you what, let's put some copper slip on that. Or, not some copper slip, some red rubber grease. Because after all, it's going to be at the bottom of the bike. Where all the muck and all the dirt's going to go, so let's get it in there. Still alright. Not too sure if that was supposed to do that. I'll go right around it. That doesn't seem right. I bet you it's the other way around. Yeah. I bet you it's the other way around. So let's take it off. Slacken that off. Let's get straight off that. pivots for a reason, and I bet it goes underneath. Although I've looked on some pictures on the internet and it shows it on top. So before I go any further, I'm just going to have a look at the book, see what the book says. And the book don't say anything. So I'll just undo it. As always, now you see, if I do that, then it's too high there, isn't it? Let's put that one back on to hold it. Just looking to see yeah, well, looking at it, can't go any other way.
Through?
Yeah, coming.
Gosh, we're going cold.
Right, I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
That was my wife telling me that my dinner's ready. So I'm just going to knit this up. I'm going to pause it there while I go have something to eat and have a ponder. So I'm back putting this centre spring thing on. Where we left it before was I couldn't get it, it was catching for some reason. So I went away and I've thought about it. And then what I did is I just took the paint off that was on the inside, just there, took the paint off, and behold, it works. Can't see it, can you? Behold, it works. And it literally was just the paint that was causing the bother. So once again, I'll just take this off. Don't know if I can show you there, look, just taking the paint off the edge, just on the inside edge, just there, and it works great. So I'm just going to put some red grease again on this because it's worn off on the last one. I do like this red rubber grease. It does seem to keep everything lubricated okay. Whoops. We spoke earlier about the split pins. I'm just going to put the new split pins back in. There's one. And there's the other one. Just put them around. So we know that they're nice and new and safe. Brake's working. Stand's working. Bracket's working. Just got the awful spring to put on now. It's always one thing after another, isn't it, really? I've just got to pull that down and put that on, and I'm just a bit nervous about doing it with it being on its stand, but no. See if we can get it on. Almost was on before. Would you believe it? There you go. And it's working. We have a lot of ground clearance, but I think what might be wrong is the spring might be wrong, because I read on the online thing somebody had put on the fact that the spring was the wrong type of spring. You know, not one size fits all, as they say. But for now, that'll do for me until I check out what the ground clearance is and see how we go. But there you go. That's everything done. That's them nice and tight. Yep. Stand working. All right. Space is all right. Everything's on. That's done. Job done. So, thank you very much.